Put her on the line, the police director's voice snapped through the speaker. Naomi Ellis, still in handcuffs on the sidewalk, locked eyes with the officer as the crowd around them held their breath. "This is Naomi Ellis," she said loud and clear, "and you just detained the wrong woman. It was supposed to be just another afternoon. The kind where you catch your breath between Zoom calls, grab a soy latte, and maybe a glazed donut if the line's short. But for Naomi Ellis, it turned out to be the kind of day that makes headlines, the kind that leaves bruises on more than just your wrists." The sun hovered mid-sky over Minneapolis, casting sharp angles down the buildings of 9th and Grand. Naomi stepped out of the municipal oversight building where she worked, her heels clicking in confident rhythm across the pavement, her blouse crisp, her navy slacks creased just right. With a travel cup tucked in one hand and her phone balanced against her shoulder, she looked exactly like what she was, a seasoned legal consultant, a community activist, a board member of the Minneapolis Civilian Police Oversight Commission. The kind of woman who didn't flinch easily, who knew the city's laws not just on paper but in practice. She'd walked these same streets for 12 years, never once expecting what was about to happen. "I'm walking now, should be back in 10, Naomi said into her phone. She waved to her assistant inside the building as the door swung shut behind her. A breeze rustled her bun but didn't break its tight hold. She turned onto 9th, humming softly to herself as she passed storefronts and loitering food trucks. The corner coffee shop came into view, and with it, the buzz of early afternoon life, until it didn't. A black and white patrol car rolled slowly beside her on the far lane, engine low, movement almost too measured. Naomi noticed it, but didn't pause. Why would she? She wasn't jaywalking. She wasn't bothering anyone. She wasn't doing anything except walking down the street she helped keep accountable. But the cruiser didn't pass. It slowed further, then angled toward the curb. She stopped mid-sentence. "You still there?" came her assistant's voice from the phone. "Hold on," Naomi muttered. The car creaked to a stop. The passenger window lowered. Inside sat 2 officers. The driver, mid-50s, white, bald, face hidden mostly behind wraparound sunglasses. The passenger, younger, black, maybe late 20s, expression unreadable. The older one leaned out slightly, voice clipped. "Ma'am, can we speak with you a moment?" Naomi blinked. "About what?" "We got a report," he said. "You were seen trying building door handles, casing storefronts." Naomi stared. "I just walked out of my office," she said, gesturing behind her. "I've got a call." "I haven't touched anything." "ID?" the younger one asked, already stepping out of the vehicle. And just like that, everything shifted. Pedestrians began to slow. A couple pushing a stroller gave a sideways glance. A man with headphones took one butt out. No one said anything, but eyes were watching. Naomi sighed, reaching into her purse slowly. "I'm going to hand you my ID," she said clearly, voice low. "I am not resisting. I would like to remain calm." The older cop's expression hardened. It was the kind of face that didn't like calm. She held out her license, state-issued, with her name, address, and professional designation listed plainly. She handed it to him. "Is this supposed to be real?" he asked, squinting. "That is a legal government-issued ID," Naomi replied, trying to keep her tone level. "And I'm standing outside the building where I work. You can literally walk 10 feet and verify that." But he didn't move. Neither did his partner. The younger one looked like he might say something, but didn't. Then the older one stepped forward. "Ma'am, please turn around. Hands behind your back." "For what?" Naomi asked, louder this time. "We got a report. Just following protocol. But I haven't done anything. You haven't asked me any questions, just demanded ID and now cuffs." "You're resisting now," he said, already reaching for her wrist. And just like that, on a bright, ordinary afternoon, Naomi Ellis was handcuffed in public on a sidewalk 2 blocks from City Hall. The metal cuffs clicked shut with a sting. Cold bit into her skin. But she didn't panic. Naomi's heart was steady, but her mind was moving fast. She took a deep breath and looked straight ahead as the older officer grabbed her elbow and led her toward the curb like she was some low-level thief. "Name again?" he asked, still holding her ID. "Naomi Ellis," she answered flatly. "Legal consultant. Civilian board member for Minneapolis Police Oversight." He paused. A flicker. A crack. The younger officer shifted uneasily. "Ma'am," he began, his voice quieter now, "we just need to verify a few things. It won't take long." "You've had my ID for 3 minutes," Naomi said sharply. "You haven't run it. You haven't called anyone. You didn't ask why I was walking here or what building I came out of. You put me in cuffs based on a vague phone call and no probable cause." A crowd was forming now. Not just glances, real attention. Phones were coming out. A woman in scrubs started recording. A teenager muttered, "Yo, what's going on here?" The older officer turned slightly to block the view, but Naomi raised her voice just enough. "I am unarmed. I am not resisting. I am being unlawfully detained." "Ma'am," the older cop said, tone turning warning, "you're not helping yourself." "I'm not trying to help myself," she shot back. "I'm stating facts. You made a mistake, and you're compounding it." More murmurs. More eyes. Someone in the distance called out, "She didn't do anything, man. Y'all just rolled up on her." "Mind your business," the older cop barked. "This is my business," the voice answered. "You cuff a woman on the street, we've got the right to ask why." Naomi felt it. The tide shifting. But she knew better than to think it was over. She turned calmly to the younger officer. "I'd like to speak to your supervisor," she said. "He'll get here when he gets here," the older one snapped. "You are required to call a supervisor if a detainee requests one," Naomi said evenly. "You know that." The younger one hesitated, then finally reached for his radio. "Dispatch Unit 12, civilian requesting supervisor at 9th and Grand. Send someone now." Naomi closed her eyes for a moment and exhaled. Then she said clearly, "I would like to make a phone call." "You're not under arrest," the older one said. "You don't get a call." "I wasn't told I was under arrest." "I wasn't told anything," Naomi replied. "You're detaining me." "I'm calling the police chief." That stopped him. "You heard me," she said. "Dial it yourself if you want, I'll give you the number." The younger one looked like he was weighing his entire career in the silence. "My phone is in my purse," Naomi said slowly. "Inside is the direct line to Police Director Marlon Tate. I suggest you call before this becomes a story you can't explain." Stillness. Then finally, the younger officer knelt, opened her bag, pulled out the phone, and handed it to her. "Unlock code is 2811, she said. "He's in favorites." Marlon Tate. She dialed, pressed speaker. 1 ring. 2. Then, "This is Director Tate." "Marlon," Naomi said loud enough for the cameras to catch, "this is Naomi Ellis. I'm handcuffed on the corner of 9th and Grand. No charges. No questioning. No verification. 2 officers." A long silence. "You're kidding me," came the voice. "I wish I were," she said. The older officer backed up. People whispered. "Put her on," Tate ordered. The younger cop lifted the phone. "Yes, sir." "Yes, she's safe." "Yes, sir." "She's on the board." His eyes widened. He turned white. Then, "Yes, sir." "Right away." He hung up. No one moved. Then slowly, carefully, the younger officer stepped forward and unlocked the cuffs. The crowd was dead quiet. Naomi rubbed her wrists but didn't look away. She turned to the growing circle of onlookers, her voice calm but unmissable. "Is everyone recording?" Heads nodded. Phones held high. Good, she said. Because this is not unusual. It just happened to the wrong person today. She turned back to the officers. Badge numbers. Now. The older one clenched his jaw. Badge number, she repeated. 6419, he muttered. She looked to the younger one. 2786, he said immediately. Thank you, Naomi replied. You'll be hearing from Internal Affairs. And that was only the beginning. The cuffs were still biting into Naomi Ellis's wrists when the tension shifted. The air on the corner of 9th and Grand had changed, thickened with attention, questions, and cell phone cameras catching every angle. She could feel the weight of stares, the silent calculations of passers-by wondering what she could have possibly done to deserve this. The metal was cold, but her voice was fire. Naomi's tone didn't shake, not when she turned to the younger officer and said with unwavering clarity, "You haven't read me my rights. You haven't asked a single question. You're detaining me based solely on a phone call with no corroboration. That's a violation of due process, and you know it." The older officer, still gripping her ID, looked annoyed that she wasn't crying or pleading. The younger one, meanwhile, looked like he wanted to vanish into his own uniform. Naomi saw it, saw the shift in his shoulders, the uncertainty creeping into his posture. "You're being difficult," the senior officer said flatly. "I'm being precise," Naomi replied, her voice slicing clean through the murmurs around them. "And I'm invoking my right to contact the director of the Minneapolis Police Department. You can either place the call or I will, but either way, this ends now." For a second, there was silence. Then the younger officer glanced toward the crowd, toward the dozen or so phones recording them, toward the badge on Naomi's ID that now seemed far too official to ignore. "Let her make the call," he said. His voice was quiet, but it landed like a gavel. The older one scoffed but stepped back. Naomi nodded once. "My phone is in my bag. I'm giving you permission to retrieve it and hand it to me." The younger officer complied, carefully opening her purse and pulling out the phone. "Unlock code is 2811, she said, then navigated with ease to her favorites. "Marlon Tate," she announced. "Police director. Call him. Now." The phone rang twice before a firm voice answered, "Director Tate." Naomi raised her voice just enough for the onlookers and cameras to hear. "Marlon. This is Naomi Ellis. I'm handcuffed on the corner of 9th and Grand by two officers who have not informed me of any charge, have refused to verify my ID, and are detaining me based on an unconfirmed report. I have said nothing but the truth. I need you to respond now." Silence crackled over the speaker for a heartbeat. Then, "You're joking," he said, voice sharp. "I wish I were," Naomi replied. "It's all being recorded. I've got at least 10 witnesses, and I've invoked every right I have." The older officer turned pale. The younger one took a deep breath like he could feel the heat of his badge burning through his vest. "Put her on the line," Tate commanded. Naomi nodded toward the younger officer, who now looked like he'd rather be anywhere else on earth. He held the phone to his ear. "Yes, sir." "She's safe." "Yes, sir." "Her ID matches." "Yes, she's who she says she is." "She's on the Civilian Oversight Board." He paused, his expression stiffening. "Understood, sir." Immediately. He ended the call and stepped forward. "Ma'am," he said, his voice soft now, "I'm going to remove the cuffs." "That's the first right decision you've made today," Naomi replied. The metal released with a sharp clink, and she slowly rotated her wrists, the red marks still fresh and visible. She didn't step back. She didn't flinch. Instead, she raised her voice and addressed the crowd. "My name is Naomi Ellis. I am not armed. I have not resisted. I was detained without cause or questioning. If this can happen to me, it can happen to anyone." Applause didn't follow. What came instead was a heavy silence, thicker than before. People were holding their phones higher now. One woman whispered, "Damn." She's not just talking. She knows. Naomi turned to the officers. Badge numbers, she said. The older one clenched his jaw. 6419, he muttered. Say it louder, Naomi said. For the camera. 6419. She turned to the younger one. 2786, he said immediately. Thank you, she said. You'll be hearing from Internal Affairs. As if summoned by the moment, a black SUV pulled up to the scene, unmarked but unmistakable. The passenger door opened and out stepped a woman in a sharply tailored navy suit, heels silent against the pavement. Her ID badge swung as she moved, Deputy Commissioner Clarice Monroe. The crowd parted around her like water. Naomi, she said, walking directly to her. Are you all right? Naomi gave a slight nod. Physically, yes. Professionally, I'm livid. Clarice turned to the officers, her tone shifting to something glacial. I've already been briefed, she said. You're both relieved of street duty pending investigation. Report to internal oversight in 30 minutes. Hand over your body cams and vehicle logs. Ma'am, with all due respect, the older one began. No, Clarice interrupted. You don't get to talk right now. Go. As the two men left, swallowed up by the SUV behind hers, Clarice turned back to Naomi. We'll get the full footage from surveillance on this block. Public videos too. But I need a statement from you directly. I'll give you one, Naomi said, straightening her blouse. But not quietly. She stepped forward again, turning to the bystanders. You can stop recording now if you want, she told them. But I suggest you don't. Because this doesn't end here. A man in the crowd called out, Preach, and someone else said, You got a mic, lady? You just took him to school. Naomi offered a tight smile. This isn't a lesson. This is a reckoning. Clarice raised a brow, nodding with quiet approval. We'll take your full statement on record, she said. But you should know, the mayor already called me. This is not going to be swept under. Naomi looked down at her wrists, still raw. Still marked. Good, she said. Because I'm not finished either. She turned, walked toward the building she'd exited only 30 minutes ago, and paused on the steps. Her assistant stood in the glass doorway, stunned. Naomi held up a hand, not a wave, not a signal to stop, but a gesture that said, Watch what comes next. And what came next would not be forgotten. Naomi didn't return to her office. Not right away. The red marks on her wrists still throbbed, but it wasn't the pain that kept her standing on the sidewalk, it was the silence, the charged, aching silence of bystanders who had just witnessed the system bend until it cracked. People hadn't scattered when the cuffs came off. They lingered. Not out of curiosity, but because something had shifted. They had seen power misused, then watched it recoil when challenged by a woman who didn't flinch. Naomi turned slowly to the crowd, her eyes scanning the faces that moments ago had recorded her humiliation. Since we're all still here, she began, voice clear but not raised, let's talk about what just happened. Not for me. For the people who don't have titles or contacts or a police chief on speed dial. The hush deepened. Some nodded. One woman whispered, Say it, barely audible over the distant hum of traffic. I wasn't stopped because I was suspicious, Naomi continued. I was stopped because someone felt uncomfortable seeing a black woman walking alone in a white-collar district, looking like she belonged. Her words landed hard, the kind that didn't ask for applause but demanded reflection. Do you know how often that happens? She said, turning to look at a teenage girl still clutching her phone. How many vague calls come into dispatch saying things like black male and hoodie or woman lurking near a door? No weapon. No crime. Just existing. And do you know how many of those end in cuffs or worse? No one answered. No one needed to. The quiet was the answer. That's why I joined the Civilian Oversight Board. Because I got tired of hearing the same story told with different names. I've seen nephews, friends, neighbors treated like suspects in their own zip codes. She took a step forward, not confrontational, but grounded, like she was anchoring the very space where justice had just tried and failed to disappear her. And let me be clear, she said, if I didn't have credentials, if I didn't speak the language of the system, if I hadn't had a direct line to leadership, they wouldn't have uncuffed me. They'd have doubled down. A man near the back muttered, "That's the damn truth." Naomi nodded slightly, not in agreement, but acknowledgement. "So what do we do?" she asked. "We document. We organize. And we don't stay silent." A young man stepped forward, hoodie half-zipped, camera still running. "You want us to post this?" Naomi didn't hesitate. "Absolutely. Keep it public. Keep it raw. Let people see the whole thing, especially the part where the system started shaking the moment the truth got louder than the badge." From across the street, Clarice Monroe watched quietly, arms crossed, her presence subtle but unwavering. When Naomi met her gaze, Clarice gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. This wasn't over, and they both knew it. Hours later, Naomi sat alone in her living room, a bottle of water sweating on the table, her phone buzzing nonstop. News stations had already picked up fragments of the video. Journalists wanted interviews. Activist groups were reposting the footage with hashtags like #CuffedWithoutCuz and #WrongWoman. Naomi didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, she turned on her front-facing camera, adjusted the angle, and hit record. The red mark on her wrist still visible, her tone measured. "My name is Naomi Ellis. I'm a legal consultant, a policy advisor, and a member of the Minneapolis Civilian Oversight Commission. Today, I was handcuffed in public without being questioned, without being informed of any crime, and without resistance. My only offense was walking to get coffee while black." She paused just long enough. "I'm not sharing this for sympathy. I'm sharing it because this story doesn't start or end with me. It starts with decades of suspicion coded as protocol and ends with people like me being forced to prove our innocence before we're even asked our names." The video was uploaded in one take. Within hours, it had over 100,000 views. By the next morning, Naomi's inbox was flooded with messages, people sharing their own encounters, city council members expressing concern, attorneys offering support. The mayor's office sent a formal request to schedule a meeting. But more powerful than all of that were the anonymous messages: a school custodian who said he'd been questioned while taking out the trash, a nurse mistaken for a suspect outside her own hospital. Naomi compiled them all. Then she did what she always did, she went to work. That Thursday, the Civilian Oversight Commission convened in an emergency session. The room was full: board members, legal staff, community representatives, and press. Naomi stood at the head of the table, a stack of printed statements in front of her. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "We are here because what happened to me has happened to thousands," she began. "And because this time, it got caught on camera." She walked them through every detail: the illegal detention, the lack of probable cause, the refusal to verify ID. Then she presented policy suggestions: mandatory implicit bias training, a public audit of stop-and-frisk data, and a new policy that required supervisors to immediately review body cam footage anytime a citizen is detained based solely on a third-party call. Some board members nodded. Others looked uncomfortable. Naomi didn't care. "This commission cannot exist to rubber stamp apologies after harm is done," she said. "We exist to prevent the harm in the first place." Outside, cameras waited. Protesters had started gathering with signs that read "Not one more" and "Dignity is not probable cause." By the time Naomi exited the building, dozens of supporters formed a corridor of silence, an act of respect, not protest. Someone handed her a folded piece of paper. It was a printed copy of the department's official apology. The seal was real. The words, not so much. But what mattered wasn't the paper. It was the acknowledgement. It was a beginning. Naomi stood on the steps of the civic building, holding the letter in one hand and her phone in the other. She recorded a new message, this time for her followers, her community, her city. "They apologized," she said, voice calm but unsmiling. "But I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for reform. I'm here for every person who was told to calm down instead of being heard. I'm here for the ones who didn't have a camera. And I'm not going anywhere." The message went viral. Again. But this time, it wasn't just Naomi's name trending. It was legislation, policy proposals, hearings. Other cities reached out asking for her draft procedures. Civil rights organizations requested partnership. She was no longer just the woman who got cuffed on a coffee run. She was the voice that refused to be ignored. 2 weeks later, Naomi stood in front of her office window, sipping tea, watching the city move beneath her. A young woman walked by outside, phone in hand, wearing a shirt that read, "You cuffed the wrong one." Naomi smiled, not out of pride, but purpose. This wasn't just about her story anymore. It was about all the quiet stories that never got a camera, all the detentions that didn't get calls returned, all the names that never got cleared. Now they had a voice. And she wasn't done using it. What happened to Naomi Ellis may feel like a rare incident to some, but for many, especially Black and brown Americans, it's a familiar story dressed in new clothes. It's a story about being seen not for who you are, but for what others fear you might be. Naomi's calm resistance and strategic use of her knowledge weren't just acts of personal defense, they were acts of public service. She didn't just protect herself that day. She lit a path for others to follow. The lesson here is painfully clear: silence protects the system. But truth, when spoken with courage, can crack it open. So what can we take away from Naomi's story? First, know your rights. Whether you're a student, a worker, a parent, or a public official, understanding your legal protections isn't just empowering, it's life-saving. Second, speak up, even when your voice shakes. Even when the odds are stacked against you. Naomi didn't wait for the system to grant her permission, she asserted her value when it mattered most. Her story reminds us that dignity is not something we beg for, it's something we carry within. Third, don't underestimate the power of documentation and community. The cell phones in that crowd didn't just record a moment, they helped shift the balance of power. And the people who stayed, who listened, who reposted, wrote, and called out, that's what turned Naomi's personal ordeal into a catalyst for reform. To everyone listening right now, if you've ever felt small, unseen, or dehumanized, you are not alone. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. And you deserve to walk through this world with both safety and dignity. We tell stories like Naomi's not just to expose injustice, but to ignite change. Because while not everyone has a title or direct access to power, everyone has the power to speak, to share, and to stand. Thank you for listening, for watching, for caring. From all of us at U.S. Justice Story, we are deeply grateful for your time, your engagement, and your support. If this story moved you, if it made you think, share it. Be part of the conversation. Be part of the solution. Until next time, stay aware, stay vocal, and never let anyone silence your truth.